Hari Om. Let's do 3 Oms and Sahana Bhavatu, and then Guru Stotram, then we'll start the text. Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Stotram. Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Namaha Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Stavaram Jangamam Vyaptam, Yatkim Chit Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darsitam Yena, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapiyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darsitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva. Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Haribo. We are doing Atmabodha. Last time we stopped at the 7th sloka. So we'll chant the 2nd sloka and continue that. Tavat Satyam Jagad Bhati, Tavat Satyam Jagad Bhati, Suktika Rajatam Yatha, Suktika Rajatam Yatha, Yavannagnayate Brahma, Yavannagnayate Brahma, Sarvadhisthanamadvayam, Sarvadhisthanamadvayam. Together. Tavat Satyam Jagad Bhati, Suktika Rajatam Yatha, Yavannagnayate Brahma, Sarvadhisthanamadvayam. Since as long as we perceive the world Jagat Bhati as Satyam, as it is indeed is true or real, Yavat Najayate Brahma, then until as long as we are saying it, so long we will not be knowing the nature of Brahman or the knowledge of Brahman. What is that Brahman? Sarva Adhishthanam Advayam, that which is the substratum or the essence of everything, that one which supports everything, the whole Jagat, and which is Advayam, which is non-dual. And this, as long as I am seeing the world as real or consider the world as real, I cannot recognize the Brahman or I cannot realize the Brahman. And here the example is Suktika Rajatam Yatha. Just as long as I think the silver is real in the shell, and I will not be recognizing the shell part of it. So here is an example where, using that example, he is trying to tell us the error, adhyasa, that Shankara talks about, adhyasa bhashya in the Brahma Sutra, where error in perception and similarly error in the knowledge also here when we are looking at the world. So here there are several words are used and we need to understand clearly the implication of it. One is satyam, what is real, because as long as I see the world is real, tavat satyam. So we should know what is real. And sarva adhishtanam advayam brahma, I cannot know. So what is the nature of that sarva adhishtanam advayam brahma? Also we should have some understanding. And the example has to be clear. Suktika rajatam yatha, just as the silver in the shell. So most of the examples are given, and the examples to illustrate some point, and one should not rest everything on that example because it's a limited application. Every example is a limited application. And here is an example that we are all familiar with. As we are walking in the beach, we saw, at least when we see something reflecting, and we say that is silver there, and we have a value for the silver, so we want to pick it up, and when we picked up and found out it's not really a silver, it is only a shell. So once we realize that it is a shell, we have no more value for it, so we throw it away. So as long as I think it is real silver, then it has a value. So as long as the reality given to the silver is there, and I have a value for that object, in the same way, as long as I give reality to Jagat, the Jagat will be valuable for me. And that is extension of the example. And we were looking at how is this example fit in terms of the world and Brahman. So here Suktika Rajatam is the silver that I see in the shell. And we ask the question, why do I see silver? Is there really silver? Some philosophers say there are really some silver and that's why you are seeing silver. But that actually is not true. What is there is only an attribute somewhat similar to silver, and the attribute is reflecting similar to silver. So therefore I consider it as a silver. So it is the attribute common for what I see there in the object and the real silver. There is a common, it's called sadrusyam. Sadrusyam means there is a similarity in the attributes, and that make me to consider that is really silver. So here the problem is I am going to decide an object based on attributes only. That is the fundamental problem. My senses can only perceive the attributes, and from the attributes, according to my own the logical development, there cannot be attributes without an object. Therefore, there is an object that has this attribute, and therefore, what I see is what is there is an assumption based on my previous knowledge. And the second thing is, the silvery attribute is dominant attribute of the silver, and that's what I am seeing in the shell. So therefore, I consider this based on that particular attribute which is dominantly coming to me, and say that is in fact is a silver, because silver also shows that particular attribute. Now, why I am not seeing the shell along with the silver? I am not seeing other attributes that differentiate that it is a shell and not a real silver. Those attributes are not coming to me. Only attributes of silveriness is coming. Therefore, based on only that part of the attribute which is dominant, I am making a judgment call that it is silver and nothing else. This is one aspect of it. Only when I pick up the shell, then I gather other attributes of the shell, and therefore, based on all other attributes besides the silveriness, because that silveriness is still there, I now decide it is not real silver, it is only shell in a silver or silver in a shell. Now, the question is there a real silver somewhere? Because if I am seeing the shell and say this is a silver, implication is I have a previous knowledge of what silver is. Essentially, I must have knowledge of a silver somewhere else, some other time, where I know that this particular attribute belongs to silver and not to iron or gold or some other element. Therefore, I have a prior knowledge and a memory that is called essentially from the memory I am able to recollect based on the attributes. So this is how the perception takes place. When I see an object, I see object because of the attributes, and an image is formed, and that image is now compared with the previous images that I have stored in the memory. And therefore, I recollect those previous and look at this attribute compares to previous ones that I know, and based on that, I can say this is that object that I am familiar with. If I don't have any memory at all, then I see first time an object with some attributes. I say, hey, I am seeing this object with these attributes, but I don't know what it is. If somebody says, this is silver, then from then on, it goes into the memory. Then I can collect back or recollect and say, whenever I see those attributes, I can say that is silver. So therefore, here it is not only the similarity, but I should have a prior samskara of the perception of the silver in the past. So that is also involved. Now, here I am not seeing complete attributes, therefore I am making an error. So errors in the Vedantic tradition or in our philosophical tradition, errors have been called khyativadas. There are several types of discussions or types of errors discussed, satkhyati and asatkhyati and so on. And according to Advaita, it's called anirvachaniya khyatibada. But here, without going into the details of the error analysis, here the error is occurring when the perception is not complete, or senses are not getting all the requisite attributes to differentiate that object from the other objects in the universe. So that is the error. So partial knowledge is the problem. I am not getting complete knowledge, it's a partial knowledge or partial information, and therefore errors in perception. So error in perception called Brahma compared to Prama. Prama means a true knowledge. Prama means a valid knowledge, or Prama implies in fact a valid knowledge where a Pramana has to operate to reveal the object. And Brahma is, I have erroneous errors in perception occurring because of incomplete information. This is one aspect of it that we need to know. So there has to be similar thing is happening when I am looking at the Brahman and the Jagat. So implication of this example is, I have a similar problem when I am looking at the world and Brahman. What is the world? Tavat satyam jagat bhati. As long as I am seeing the world as real. So why is it not real? So what should I know to know that it is not real? Because all the attributes that I am using, the 5 senses of attributes that I am using to look at the world, is only giving me the world is real. So I don't have any other additional attributes that can come to tell me that it is not real. That's number one. So therefore, the example has to be fitting into the exact, and it doesn't seem to directly, because there is no exact example that we can have. We have to use only, it's similar to a superimposed error, where error of a silver is superimposed on the shell, which is the real. There is no silver there at all. So when I picked up the shell and look at it again and say, it is not silver, what happened? What happened to the silver that I saw? silver that I saw is only in my mind. I thought it is a silver. There is no real silver before or after. There is no silver any time in the shell. It's always a shell only, appearing as though it is silvery due to reflection. Therefore, there is never a silver in the shell. And when I picked up the absolute truth of it is shell, and there was no silver at all. Other than it was appearing silver because of some similarities. So this has to be understood now. Now what are the things that we need to know? Number one, what are the similarities and dissimilarities in the Jagat and Brahman that makes us to mistake Jagat is real? We need to understand, because in order to apply this example, so we need to have a similarity of this example to that, and we say the world is real. So what makes the world is real? Because all our perceptual knowledge gives the world is real only. Therefore, we have no understanding the absolute truth that is underlying. So in the case of the shell, when I picked it up, I got other attributes that were not perceived before, and based on those attributes, I say it is a shell and not silver. Now, what kind of attributes I had to pick up in order to know this world is not real and there is a Brahman that is real? He says you cannot, because Brahman has no attributes. So there is no way I can look at the Brahman and look at the attribute content and then come up to a reality which is Brahman, which is behind the Jagat. So how am I going to know that this world is not really real? For that only scripture becomes a pramana. So it is not through perceptual process I will know. In the case of shell, I could know by perceptual process that it is a shell and not silver. By perceptual process, I cannot know that this is Brahman or not the Jagat. So that's why I need to have a subtle viveka. A viveka, a sushma buddhi has to be developed in order to see that which is behind this world, which is really real, and not this Jagat, which is not really real. So what makes something real and not real? In the case of silver, when I picked it up silver, the silver is no more there, or silver is not there at all. In fact, silver is never there. So when I look at the world appears to be there as real. Then how do I know what is that which is real and what is not unreal in this world? Because everything looks real only for me as I am transacting in the world. And the scripture says now, that which is real is Trikala abhaditam satyam. That which remains the same in all three periods of time alone is real. So if something is changing, that cannot be real. So the word Jagat itself is coined, is Jayate Gacchate, that which keeps coming and going and it's continuously changing. So Jagat word itself is the whole world is continuously changing. The time doesn't remain same, continuously. Kanjinayamanyo sayam prataha shasiravasanto punarayataha kala kridati gacchatyayuhu. So this day comes, day goes, every sunrise comes, sunrise goes, and the night comes, and every day going on, seasons come and years go on and on. So continuously changing in the system is occurring. So child is born, is growing up, is become young man, and ultimately becomes old and dies. This continuous life itself is changing. So when there is a changing things which is being experienced, and that seems to be real, but scripture says that which remains the same, which is nityam, does not undergo any modifications, alone is real. Now we have to apply that definition to distinguish Jagat and Brahman in from what I see. In the case of silver, the shell in the silver, we used other attributes that could differentiate shell from the silver that I know. But here Other attributes cannot be used because Brahman doesn't have any attributes, and therefore I had to use an intelligence inquiry in order to understand what is that remains the same in all things in the world that are changing. So if something is changing, the law demands that there has to be changeless entity in the changing things. So how do we know? That's exactly what a law of conservation implies. If A plus B becomes a C plus D, so even though A plus B is becoming into C plus D, we have to know that there is something that remains the same in this side of the equation and that side of the equation, and that's what a chemical student will do, like a balancing the equation. What is he balancing? He is balancing that the matter on this side is same as the matter in the other side. That means something is conserved in this A plus B becoming into C plus D. So there is a continuous change occurring. At the same time, there is something that remains changeless in the changing things. So that is our experience. Whether it's the law of conservation demands that the energy or matter has to be conserved. Only one form of energy is transformed into other form, or one form of matter converts into other. In fact, matter and energy are also related, so everything becomes conserved in the inert world itself that we see. And Krishna, in fact, emphasizes this aspect also in the Bhagavad Gita. In the second chapter of 16 says, Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. That which is non-existent cannot come into existence, because if non-existent suddenly appears, it's against the law of conservation. Something is creating out of nothing. That cannot happen. So non-existence cannot come into existence, and the existence cannot disappear, cannot cease to exist, because existence is conserved all the time. And therefore existence alone was there before creation. That existence itself became many as transformationless transformation in all this Jagat. So what implication is, through the scriptures, I had to understand if something is changing in the Jagat, in the world, so there has to be something which is changeless. And what is that changeless entity? That changeless entity has to be Nityam, that which is eternal, because if it is modified, then it is again comes under changing entity. And that which is Nityam, and that which has to be supporting for all the changeless entities, and that becomes a Brahma. And therefore, the Bhagavad Pada Shankara says, Sarva Adhishtanam Brahma, that which is remaining the same, supporting all the changes in the Jagat. And therefore, I have to see that which is changing things and the changeless entity in the changing things. So how am I going to know what is the changeless entity in the changing things? So there is no way I can know directly, because it has not an object with attributes, and it's only Brahman which is infinite, which cannot be seen. And therefore I had to use a scriptural teaching and viveka, or the discriminative intellect, to see what is that which is changeless in the changing things, or to understand what is that which is changeless in the changing things. And that is the implication here. It says, Avat Satyam Jagat Bhati. So Satyam is the reality. So reality we have defined now, that which remains the same in all three periods of time alone is real. That is the definition of Satyam. Trikala Abhaditam Satyam. And just to complete, we have Satyam, we have Asatyam. Asatyam means there is non-real, unreal. So what is unreal? Unreal is that which has no locus for existence at any time. That is the correct definition of unreal. And the best example is Vandhyaputraha. Vandhyaputraha means the son of a barren woman. So there is a logical contradiction in that, because when I say son of a barren woman, there is a logical contradiction. You cannot have a son. If you have a son, then she cannot be a barren woman. Therefore, because of the logical contradiction, such entity can never exist at any time. There are other examples. For example, if you go to Nyaya Vaiseshikas, they give example. For example, the horns of a hare. Says there are no horns of a hare. So how do you know? Because no one has seen it. Therefore, it is not there. So there, it is not illogical. There is no logical contradiction in that. The hare can have horns, but we say it is still asatyam because no one has seen so far. There is no entity so far. Suppose if there are some hares with horns in some other world, then we have to change that. But therefore, there is no logical contradiction, but it is based on just observation, based on the conscious entity. No conscious entity has seen such entity. Therefore, they call it as asatyam. Now, the question is, does the Jagat comes under Satyam or Asatyam? Therefore, the statement is, Tavat Satyam Jagat Bhati, as long as I see the world is real. But I am saying the world is real because I am seeing it, but that's changing. So is changing thing real or not real? So that question arises now. So because I am transacting the whole world thinking that it is real, including this talk and you listeners and the speaker, everything seems to be real, and internet, all these things seem to be real, then what is unreal here? Why do you say it's unreal? Therefore we say it is neither real nor unreal. It is not real because it doesn't fit into our definition as Trikala Abhaditam. It's not a changeless in all the changing things. Therefore, it is not real. But at the same time, it is not like Vanja Putraha. It's not like non-existent, because we are without existing, we cannot experience. Therefore, every experience involves having something there. So therefore, it's a peculiar situation now. It doesn't come under our satisfactory definition that it is changeless entity. Therefore, it is not absolutely real, but it is still appears to be real, but it's changing. Therefore, we need to coin a word that's called mithya. Mithya is that which appears to be real, but it's not really real. So, the word appears to be real, or transactionally real, or relatively real, are called a vyavaharika satyam. For transactional, it appears to be there. The coffee is coffee, tea is a tea, the speaker is speaker, listener, all those things are relative in that realm. But only if you look at the absolute point, the existence alone was there, and the same existence appearing in different forms. Each form has its own attributes. In the next sloka, is going to give more about it. So, here the Satyam aspect has to be clear, where what is Satyam, the Jagat appears to be Satyam, it is not Asatyam or it is not Satyam also, it is Mithya. So, because it is experience. So, any experience is Mithya, and the world comes under that category. So, just for completeness, we have now 3 degrees of Satyam from the point of Advaita. One is Paramarthika Satyam, which is same as Satchidananda Swarupam Brahman, Sarvadhishtanam Brahman. That is absolutely same, eternally present, and that is the nature of existence, consciousness, and ananta. Therefore, anandam, anantameva anandam. Therefore, it is absolute, limitless, and therefore that scripture says as the mean for us to know. Therefore, that is the Paramarthika Satyam. And there is a Vyavaharika Satyam in this waking world where I am projecting certain things, just as Suktika Rajatam Yatha, just as the silver in the shell. Now this example is very particular. There is another example that Advaitins are familiar, just as I am seeing the snake where the rope is. So now we'll try to analyze a little bit. There are two types of error that can come. One is a subjective error, another is objective error. Subjective error is in the subject. So when I see a rope, and when I see an object which is rope in the alley, because of darkness, I am not getting all the attributes of the object. I know, because of still I can see that there is an object, so there is a vastu jnanam is there, so some truth is there, but at the same time I do not getting the complete truth of that object. I am only getting a partial. It's 5 feet long, it is curved, and it is soft when I touch, when I stepped on it, and therefore those are attributes that are common for both the rope and a snake. So when I see only those attributes and not seeing the attributes that differentiate a snake versus a rope. Suppose if it starts moving, I know it is not a rope, it must be a snake. But those attributes are not seen, therefore only based on the attributes that I have gathered so far, because of the conditions or because there is no enough light and because of my sense input are not complete, and therefore the error in perception is occurring here. And I am only seeing that it is a snake, and that knowledge will remain with me until I negate that knowledge by throwing something else to reveal what the object is. So here we have to be very careful. Another person who might have walked in that and say there is no snake there, he saw it as completely as a rope, and I say it is a snake. I'll ask him, why do you say it is a rope? I saw it is a snake. He says, why are you saying it is a snake? It is a rope. So we can keep arguing until the heaven freezes. But the fact of the matter is, as long as I do not have an opposite knowledge or a knowledge that contradicts the previous knowledge, or that which negates my previous Brahma, because knowledge cannot be contradicted, and that negates that previous assumption that it is a snake and not a rope, and that has to be resolved. Otherwise, I may have that knowledge that it is only a snake, and if it has hit me or something, I may say I have a snake bite, and I have all other associated fears that come with it. Because it's a snake, I'm afraid, and my blood pressure goes up, I start breathing hard. All those, the reactions are physical, noticeable, but that's come from my misunderstanding that it is a snake. The misunderstanding lies with me because I do not know the truth. So when I do not know the truth as a truth, that's called the covering of the truth by the ignorance, and the mind will project something other than the truth based on the information it has gained so far. So this is how the whole projection is. So Prakalpita is going to talk in the next sloka, where the projection comes in. When there is a non-apprehension of the truth, then there is a misapprehension of the truth by projecting something other than the truth. I may project it is a snake also or rope also. But if it is a rope, if I say, yeah, that may be a rope, it may be a real snake there. So in either way, there is a projection based on incomplete knowledge. And that comes, I have some knowledge, at the same time I have not complete knowledge. If I have no knowledge at all, I don't know whether there is even a vastu, object is there, then I just calmly go. I can say there is neither rope nor a snake. Or if I have complete knowledge, when the lights are bright and I could clearly see it is a rope there, then I have no problem. I walk through. Only problem is I have half knowledge. Half knowledge is I know that there is, and I don't know what that is. Therefore, I say there is that part and a snake. So there is a snake involves there is part which is true and snake part which is false, and that is what is called adhyasa. Adhyasa is superimposition of something real on top of something unreal. There are no ropes under snake. The snake is not superimposed on top of rope. No, it is only snake. When I say there is object and that is a snake, that is my understanding. Only when I shed light on it, and the light reveals the object and reveals the truth of the object. When the truth of the object is revealed, then I say it is a rope. So what happened to the snake? Snake is not really there. So nothing happened to the snake. Snake arose in my mind, and that mind says that is a snake. So that which is subject to error, because it's my mental projection, not everybody's mental projection, and therefore when I shed the light on it, I say the snake is no more. So once I have the knowledge of the reality, I will not see snake again. This is called subjective error. And that's true with all the pratibhasika errors. Pratibhasika is a subjective error where I project it myself. My own mind is projecting, but that's not a universal error. Other people is seeing rope as a rope, and other guys may see snake. So this subjective error will get dissolved once I have the knowledge of the truth. So that's the nature of this error. There are objective errors where even though when I know the truth as a truth, then the still perception of the untruth goes on. And Suktika Rajatam Yatha is one of the examples where even though I have now know that it is not silver and I am seeing the shell, still the silveriness pursues, and say, I know it is looking like a silver, but it's not really silver. In the same way, when I see a mirage water, and once I know that there is no real water, even after the knowledge is gained that about the truth, that does not eliminate the objective error. The objective error is still I see a reflection that resembles water. Here still I see a reflection that is resembling the silver. So similarly, in the case of the world, when I realize that it is Brahman, so even though Vedanta and inquiry leads me to the understanding that it is indeed Brahman, when I look back after the knowledge is gained, I still see the Jagat. Why? Now this is an objective error. In the case of rope snake, my mental mind has projected the snake. But remember, the rope is there as a part of the universe. The whole universe, it's not my mental projection, it is the mental projection of the total mind, Ishvara. So that we will address in the next sloka. But here, it is important to know that once I realize the truth, then the error can continue. But at the same time, I have a knowledge that it is a perceptual error, but not the truth behind is there is no the reality to the world. So a jnani or Jivanmukta operates at that level where understood, as long as the perception keeps going or the BMI is there, body, mind, intellect is there, he will be still seeing the world around, but at the same time he understood this world is neither real nor unreal. So he continues the transactions as though he is living in the world, because transactionally he is on the same level as, so his transactions are also mithya and the world is also mithya, but he understood both are mithya. Therefore, it is not satyam. So here the emphasis is tavat satyam jagat bhati suktika rajatam yatha yavanna jnayati brahma sarva adhishtanam advayam. That sarva adhishtanam advayam is here a definition of Brahma itself is packed in this sloka. So when you ask how do we find Ishvara, this is a very interesting topic We discussed somewhere in the Bhakti Yoga topic. But here is, say, I want to know God. Who is God? So how do you define God? So all religions define God as Jagat Karta Ishwaraha. First definition is, the Lord is the one who created this universe. So I don't know where the Lord is, but I am seeing the world, Jagat, and it is an ordered system, a well-behaved system, a thermodynamic system. Therefore, there has to be an intelligence behind it, and that intelligence is what we call the Lord. And if you go the analysis, He cannot be inside the world, the Lord cannot be inside the world, nor Lord cannot be outside the world, because inside the world, everything inside the world is created. So He has to be beyond creation, therefore He cannot be inside the world. He cannot be outside the world, because outside also has to be created for Him to be there. So there cannot be any outside. That outside is also inside the Jagat only. That means Jagat is infinite. That's why it's called Purnamidham. Purnamidham means the universe. Idam stands for the whole universe. Is Purnam, is infinite. And therefore, that Ishvara who created this whole universe, all the scriptures says, and that is, some scripture says He is in the heaven. But who created heaven? He has to create only heaven. But where was He before He created heaven? Then we have another problem. So He cannot be placed anywhere. That is, most of the scriptures has a problem, and they put Him in heaven. But at the same time, all scripture says He is everywhere. He is omnipresent. So how does that fit in? When He is in heaven, at the same time He is here too. And the way to account is, the Vedanta asks the second question, says, where is that Lord? Why did He create? Why did He create such a mess? And why did He consult me about this creation? If you ask all those questions, the Vedanta will say, you have to go to the second definition. And the second definition of Ishvara is Jagat Karanam Ishvaraha. He is not only the intelligent cause, He is the material cause. Karanam, Karanam, Karta, so in the Vishnu Sahasranama says, He is not only the intelligent cause, that is called the word is coming, not coming. Okay, and also material cause. So therefore, it's called Upadana Karanam and Nimitta Karanam. Nimitta Karanam is intelligent cause. So He's not only the intelligent cause, the Vedanta says He is the material cause also. So other scriptures, if you ask, how did He get material to create? So they have no answer. But here it says material came from Him, because there is no other material beside Him. So Brahman, which is infinite, He cannot go outside anywhere, because there is no outside even. Therefore, the material for the creation also has to come. So therefore, the scripture says, in fact, says He Himself became many. Tadaikshada bahusyam prada eti. He saw and He decided to become many, and He Himself became many. Means whole Jagat itself is nothing but Brahman Himself in different form. But forms keep changing, but Brahman is changeless entity. Therefore, Brahman is defined as the third definition, Sarva Adhishtanam Brahma. You have to look in and through the objects that are changing, which is changeless entity in the changing things. So I had to use the word, and it used the aim, the subject and the object, and then go beyond to see what is that which remains the same in both the subject and the object. So Sarva Adhishtanam includes both subject and object. Adhishtanam, the substratum for both, and that is pure existence, and that is itself is the near real reality. That is Brahman, and that is Advayam. Advayam means non-dual. So that existence itself is pervading the whole universe, because universe exists. We are not talking about non-existent universe. We are only talking about our experience only existing things in the world. And that existence has to be Advayam. Advayam means non-dual. Why it has to be non-dual? And this is what in fact, Panchadasi text that we are taking is being exhaustively analyzed. But here, Advaya means there is no other duality. Other than this existence can only be non-existence, and you cannot say non-existence also exists. So existence alone is existing, and that has to be infinite. And therefore, it is Sarva Adhishtanam Advayam Brahma. So that has to be known, and until that is known, we cannot see the world also unreal. So here, two things here. Tavat satyam jagat bhati suktika rajatam yatha yavanna jnayate brahma sarvadhishtanam advayam. Now, we have to ask the question, are there two steps involved? Number one, first I have to see the world as not real, and then recognize the Brahman which is real. That's not true. Actually, when I recognize the Brahman as the substratum which is real all the way, then automatically involves recognition of the world is not real, really real. So both are essentially the two aspects or two sides of the same coin. And so Shankara says, Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya. Both have to come, and both aspects are involved in the Advayam, in the knowledge of non-duality. One last item I would like to cover in this, it's a very deep sloka, and one is, what's the difference between the knowledge and experience here, because jnanam is involved. So jnanam and experience has to be understood. So experience is, because people say, oh, I understood Advaita, now I want to experience the Brahman. So any experience is time bound, because there is an experiencer, experience and experiencing. That's called Triputi or triad, and that remains the same. So every experience is limited, because its experience is limited by experiencer and experienced. So every experience is limited, and experience is limited also by time wise, because there is a beginning for experience, therefore end for experience. Even if I am sitting in the samadhi and experiencing Brahman, and once I come out of the samadhi, if I don't experience Brahman, then that Brahman is not really true, because experience is time bound. The knowledge is different from experience. So experience is not, I am not longing for experience. There is never a time I am not experiencing Brahman. Even when I am transacting in the world, I am experiencing the world as Brahman also, but my attention is now being paid to Nama Rupa, only the changing things, and I am forgetting in the process. I am forgetting in the process the substratum of Sarvadhishtanam Brahma. I am not able to recognize, therefore I am getting carried away with the superimposed, the attributive world of objects. And therefore experience is different from knowledge. Knowledge resolves the experience. In fact, knowledge resolves, one experience can be contradictory to the other experience. So I am seeing the Brahman as plurality, and experience or knowledge of Brahman says there is no plurality whatsoever. What you are seeing is only a Brahma, not a Brahma, not real truth. And when the knowledge comes into picture, the knowledge resolves the contradictions in the experiences. So whatever experiences, there may be contradictions, but there will not be any contradictions in the knowledge. So knowledge is absolute. But in the knowledge itself, I have gradations of the relative knowledge and the absolute knowledge. In the transactional world, I have a knowledge through pramana, and I will know all the pramana is a means of knowledge, and prameya is object that I am seeing or knowing. So all the knowledge that I am gaining in the world through perceptual process or anumana and all the pramanas, including all the sciences and everything, all the objective knowledge, and all that essentially comes under transactional knowledge only. And that is transcended by the Paramarthika Jnanam. So even while this knowledge is not negated, it's only transcended with the higher knowledge. Just as you have a classical mechanics and a quantum mechanics. Now classical mechanics is not wrong, but when you go to higher understanding of subtle, smaller and smaller particles, you have to resort to quantum mechanics. So quantum mechanics does not negate the classical mechanics. Both are relatively real in their sphere of knowledge. So coming back to our knowledge, one is the Paramarthika Satyam, that's absolute knowledge. Another is the transactional knowledge, the Vyavaharika Satyam. And the third is Pratibhasika Satyam. Pratibhasika Satyam is subject to errors, just as in the dream world. In the dream world, when I am dreaming, all the dream objects and dream knowledge are all only in that. But once I come out of it, come to the Jagrat state or waking state, all that is negated. And that way I have Pratibhasika, Vyavaharika and Paramarthika. Is Paramarthika also negated by some other? It cannot be, because that is absolute. Therefore, Sarva Adhishtanam Advayam Brahma Jnanam is the absolute knowledge where there is no further knowledge. That's called the Param, supreme knowledge. And it negates all other knowledges, but cannot be negated because it's about the absolute truth. So with that, we can go to the next sloka. The sloka number 8. Upadane khiladhare, upadane khiladhare, jaganti parameshware, jaganti parameshwari, sargastiti layan yanti, sargastiti layan yanti, buddhudani bavaruni, buddhudani bavarini. Together, upadane khiladhare, jaganti parameshwari, sargastiti layan yanti, buddhudani bavarini. So, upadane akhiladhare, jaganti parameshware, sargastiti layanyanti, buddhudhani vavarani. So how do I know this world? How do I know the world or the Ishvara? So here we have three things. One is the subject, Jiva, and the object, the world that I have. And scripture says this is a creation and there is a creator. And that is only a scriptural pramana. A scientist will say, I don't see any creator here, because he is trying to look for an objectifiable creator in the universe. So people have come up with so-called God particle, but God particle came and disappeared. And the one who didn't disappear is the one who is investigating the God particle. The scientist or an observer seems to be more permanent than the particle that came and disappeared in the whatever's the system. So therefore here, upadane akhiladhare, akhila adhare, which is essentially that which is supporting for everything. Sarva adhishtanam Brahma mentioned, and that itself is material cause for the world. Upadanam. Upadana karanam is the material cause. This is what I discussed. For every creation, you should have the intelligent cause as well as the material cause. So most of the scriptures talk about only the intelligent cause, but most important is the material cause. Where did you get your material? And that himself is Jaganti for these worlds, is Parameshware, is Parameshwar, is the Lord himself, is in the Lord, or in the Parameshwara, the Supreme Lord. This whole world is coming out as Akhila Adhare Jaganti. The whole creation is appearing as he is the material cause for the creation. And sargastiti layanyanti buddhudani varini, and it manifests as sarga sthiti laya. See, that which is layam, that sarga sthiti means the creation, sustenance and dissolution. So all these things are essentially continuously occurring because the cycle of the creation, sustenance and dissolution and again back into. So yanti is continuous process of these three, the creation, sustenance and the annihilation is part of essentially occurring in Parameshwari, and as he is the material cause for the whole universe. And gives an example, Budbudani va varini. In the varini, in the water, there are budbudas, is essentially bubbles that are arising in the water. And each bubble is as though it is a creation. And what is the essence of it? It is nothing but the water only. Water associated with air is what is a bubble. So now the water itself as though arising, the bubbles arising from the water, and it is the form of the water only with surrounded by or enclosed by the air, and it goes back into the water. So now we have, if you look at the current, the understanding of the galaxies and galaxies and galaxies, even though Earth is so big from our point, but is so small compared to the whole solar system. The size of the Earth in relation to the solar system is so small. But the solar system, the sun itself, is so small compared to the galaxy Milky Way. So if you look at it, there may be other life forms and other worlds beyond our own solar system in the same galaxy itself, because there are millions or billions of stars in our system itself, and they can have a planetary system and life possibility. Wherever the life is possible, life will be there. So therefore, there is, according to our scriptures, this is like a slope bubbles coming all over, and in the same way, now we are seeing, if you look at the total magnitude of the whole universe, even the galaxies look like bubbles in the total space, and therefore the analogy is appropriate. And this Budbudani Vavarni, it is appearing as bubbles. So in the bubble formation we just mentioned, it is the water mixed with the air forming a bubble. So air is essentially that which escapes and that which is subtler, and what is that subtler is essentially the vasanas that mixed with that one which is forming the universe. We will see that later, but essentially an analogy can be applied in that. And this Brahman is defined now. In the previous one it says the Sarva Adhishtanam. Here it is that which is creator and sustainer and annihilator. Sargasthitilayanti. Says Gatir Bharta Prabhusachi Nivasa Saranam Srihudu Prabhava Pralayasthanam Nidanam Bijamavyayam. Krishna declares, and therefore I am the Prabhava Pralayaha Sthanam. I am that which is from which the whole universe came, by which it is sustained, into which goes back. Yatova imani bhutani jayante ena jatani jivanti yat prayam savijam vishanti tad vijñāsasva tad brahmeti. So here the definition here is upadana karanam is used to define the world, define the God here, because we see the material, we don't see the world. We don't see the intelligent cause, but we see only the material cause. In the material cause, interesting aspect of it is an effect because it is caused. So effect is a material transforming into something else only. That's what a transformation is. So in the transformation, it has to retain the properties of the cause. So according to our theory, the cause itself is modifying into effect. And this kind of creation is what is scripture provides in the Chandogya that we discuss in the Panchadasi class also, where it says as he's going to talk in the next few slokas, is going to mention where it is a transformationless transformation, just as gold becoming into ornaments, where gold still remain as a gold, yet varieties of ornaments with different attributes and names are coming. And that is the similar way is where the Brahman Parameshwara, because Parameshwara is a conscious entity, and therefore when when it becomes a material cause, appears to be unconscious, but not really true, because it is only a transformationless transformation, and therefore that appropriate definition is used to define a Brahman. So we have to go into a little bit more details, and next class we will address this. And now we will do Purnamada and end the class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.